Okay. Welcome back as we begin with the Red River board. I just want to remind everyone that all candidates were invited to participate in the event, and if they're not here, it's from their own choosing. So to remind everyone the format as well, each candidate will get asked a unique question in turn. You have 2 minutes to answer the question. Okay? The green light will light up during your first minute, the yellow light during your second minute, and by the time the red light is flashing, your time is up. All right, so I'd like to welcome everyone again and introduce the candidates. Brad Ford, right? James Marsh, who's not here with us tonight, Martin Rukavina, Katherine Suutari, Jason Veltri, and Michael Zucino. All right, so before we jump into the questions, I want to give each candidate 60 seconds to introduce themselves in turn. So Brad, we'll begin with you.
Evening, everyone. My name is Brad Ford, 29 years old, so probably one of the youngest candidates running, but age doesn't necessarily diminish experience. Born and raised here in Thunder Bay, see a lot, done a lot. It's great to see all of you out and about here tonight because a lot more public forums like this. You know what, let's have a good night. Let's ask some nice thought-provoking questions. Hopefully I'll be able to deliver all the right answers. That being said, won't be able to please everyone, but I hope I'll be able to get somewhere along the way.
Great. All right, thank you, Brad. All right, Martin.
All right, thank you. Hello, my name is Martin Rukavina. Before getting started, I just wanted to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, and also recognize that Thunder Bay is home to a historic Métis community. I'd also like to recognize that we are signatories to the Robinson-Superior Treaty of 1850, and acknowledge that there are differences of opinion in terms of what that treaty means. I'm writing because actually I'm excited about this election. I think it's a change election. I think there's so much energy and enthusiasm in this room. I think people want to see a difference and people want to make change within their community. And I think that's essential. A lot of my background has been working in terms of co-developing initiatives, both with First Nations, Métis, Inuit partners, but also thinking about economic development opportunities like the Ring of Fire and helping to make sure that we're moving them forward in terms of a good way. I see so many things in terms of people having issues in terms of disconnection in terms of city services. I think we need to do a better job. I think we need to show value in terms of the city services that are available to folks. I think we need to make sure that we're connecting more as a community in terms of the types of services that are available. I also want to make sure that people are motivated and engaged in making sure that everyone has an opportunity to be involved in decision making. I think that that's really the future. We're in the 21st century, and I think that that's pivotal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seconds is up. Right.
Hi, I'm
Katherine.
Kathy Suutari, and I don't have much political experience, but I did run provincially, and I gained a lot of experience that way, and I met quite a few in my riding and talked with a lot of people and found out there's a lot of issues that have been in the city that haven't been addressed or have been forgotten and have gotten worse, and a lot of people's voices haven't been heard. People want to be part of the decision-making process in this city, where the money is going, and that hasn't happened. So I'm here just to bring the voice back into council from the people. I'm not there, I'm unbiased, I'm impartial, and I'm not going to be beholden to any organization or anything. The people are the voice for me.
Thank you, Katherine. Jason.
Well, good evening. Bonjour. Thank you all for being here. And thank you to the staff of the Thunder Bay Public Library. Thanks, Richard. And thank you to my fellow candidates for putting a name forward. My name is Jason Veltri, and I am applying for the job of Red River Councillor. I'm a dedicated, hardworking community organizer, passionate activist for human rights. I've been focused on making life better and more inclusive for equity-seeking Indigenous and racialized communities through my involvement on 2 city advisory committees and founding the Rainbow Collective in 2021. This election is about a new generation of leadership at 500 Donald Street. I value teamwork, and I will always strive to build consensus on difficult and important topics. It would be the honor of my life to serve you as your next Red River Ward Councillor. No matter how tough or challenging the decision, we can, together, build a community that lives up to its full potential. I will fight nonstop to ensure everyone has a fair chance to succeed. Miigwech, thank you.
Right, thank you, Jason. Right. Michael.
Okay. Hi, my name's Mike Zizino. I'm 49 years old. I'm a resident of Red River for my entire life. I grew up in Sequoia, and then I've moved to Merriday Park as an adult. I have 3 children. I have a wife. I've been an educator for 25 years with the Catholic School Board, and I've taught lots of kids and maybe some of your kids as well. Why did I delve into politics? Well, because I wanted to make a difference. I think I've raised my children. I'd like them to call Thunder Bay home in the future. And I think that we have a lot of good amenities we have in our community, and we think we need to foster that and better what we have. And that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. All right, so we'll move into the Q&A portion of the section, and we'll continue from where we left off with the last candidate. So, Brad, question 15. How will you prioritize the demands on city capital spending as varied as waterfront development, downtown revitalization, a new central library, and an indoor sports facility? What kinds of projects should the city be funding, and what should citizens expect in return?
Well, I think for starters that the citizens actually need value for their money. That's something that we haven't seen lately. I think we can all agree on that. I think that both the downtown core should be equally treated, not preferential treatment given to one or the other. Sports facility shouldn't just be one-trick pony, it should be multi-use. That being said, we do have world-class scenery here, world-class, people, actually. We produce lots of great talent here. I would say that, we'd actually prioritize, I want to say, maybe get the cores done first. So in that way, people, the locals, our day-to-day lives, we can actually go out, see our tax dollars hard work initially, and then slowly transition into the more expensive projects such as, event centers and the like. And that's the way I look at it personally.
Okay, thank you, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Martin, the next question is for you, number 16. Crime and addiction are major interrelated issues in our city. Do you feel like the current model of policing is appropriate for our community? And what, if any, changes would you like to see to our model of first responders?
So I was just talking about this in the community session earlier. I think we absolutely need more resources to address some of the guns, gangs, drug dealers, human traffickers that have come into the city. Right now, we don't receive enough resources from the provincial government to address that. We need to get more. We need to make sure that we're supporting police and making sure that we're supporting the front line as much as possible. I think we also need to look at neighborhood policing. I think that we need to make sure that we're supporting governance within the policing system, making sure that we've got a chief, making sure that we're thinking about some of those programming and software pieces with respect to how police actually operate. Before we do that, or while we're doing that, we need to actually think about making sure that we're supporting the sustainability of the police as well. I think before getting into facilities, we actually need to make sure that we've stabilized what the police governance looks like and making sure that we're providing adequate resources to make sure that we're addressing things in a sufficient way.
Thank you, Martin. All right. Kathy, question number 17. Many communities on the south side of town feel neglected as the housing stock deteriorates, homelessness is on the rise, and the business community struggles with street-level social issues. What is your plan for revitalizing our most economically depressed neighborhoods?
First of all, when you look at the Fort Williams, well, we have this issue here in Port Arthur too, but it's not as predominant as it is in Fort William. We have a lot of older buildings, a lot of abandoned buildings, a lot of deteriorating in the buildings. We need to probably tear down a lot of those buildings because, I don't know, maybe they're rat infested, who knows. We have people probably, using them as shelter and things like that. We could reconstruct some of the buildings to offer lower income. We could incentivize developers to to put some work back into the community to help the homelessness situation in this city. I think we need to make sure that contractors give back to the community and whatever. But, you know, you look at the new development or the new apartment that's going up by the hospital. It already says luxury apartments or whatever. Obviously, it's not for low rental income. It's, you know, and then you look at the zoning on the website, and the south has nothing. Like, there's nothing happening, no new construction, no, you know, and no new businesses. The streets crime is I know, I think businesses should be allowed to be able to protect themselves and their businesses. Because I know when I was at Robbins on Cumberland at 2 a.m., somebody decided they were going to smash their windows, and it took 2 weeks for the cops to even come and take a report. So I don't know where the backlog is or what's going on, but I think a timely manner and stopping this is go hand in hand to help with the street crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Jason, question 18 is yours. As ecological and health concerns for our population mount and seniors become Thunder Bay's largest demographic, walkability has become a top concern for many. Walkable neighborhoods support local business, decrease isolation and loneliness, encourage healthier lifestyles, and reduce car dependency. Please describe how you intend to make Thunder Bay a more walkable, close-knit community.
Yeah, thanks for that question. And really, we have to look to the new zoning bylaw that was just passed by council. And it really essentially does this. By approving urban density areas, the purpose is to encourage mixed uses. So this would mean residential areas supporting with commercial development within the same zone. A good example of this, and Kathy kind of mentioned this, but I'll take it a different way, is the development at Riviera Drive across from River Terrace that was initially started as a strip mall, which would have seen coffee shops and barber shops and maybe a bank. But Kathy's right, it's now a luxury apartment building. That wasn't communicated to this community. It wasn't communicated to the residents of Red River, especially those who live in River Terrace. I have a problem with that because we don't need more luxury apartments. We need more walkable and livable areas. So this, again, would have been a great mixed-use opportunity to have residential with commercial spaces. So again, people can walk to pick up their medication at the corner, or they can go and get their groceries, go for a coffee with their neighbors, all within close proximity to their home. So I support a model where we live in our city, where we can walk to our corner store, and we don't see that now. So this new zoning bylaw will hopefully spur that new development. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. All right. Mike, question 19. Racism and discrimination hurt us all. Reports such as the OIPRD report highlight how Thunder Bay needs to do more to make our city a truly safe and inclusive space for everyone. How will you demonstrate the city's commitment to reconciliation and the decolonization of public services?
Well, interesting question, because last Friday was Truth and Reconciliation Day, and at school we had a guest speaker, and he spoke very well about some of these issues. His name is Kevin Lamoureux, and he said that education is the key to this. Get people educated as to what has happened in the past, and then we can move forward. So I think Truth and Reconciliation Day can't just be one day and then let's forget about it. It needs to be employed, and I think generations, the older generations, the younger generations in school that I work with need to be informed. And I think that'll make you more cognizant of what is going on and what people have experienced in their life. For myself, I've never really experienced racism and discrimination, so I can't speak to it as someone who's experienced it, but I can imagine, I can empathize with what people have had to contend with over the course of their lives and day to day. So I think we need to also celebrate success stories. Okay, I think that indigenously run businesses need to be broadcast, and events such as Wake the Giant need to be promoted as they are and attended the way they're supported in our community. So,
Yeah, thank you. All right, move into our second round of questions, starting with Brad. Number 20. We have gaps in our physical as well as social infrastructure. Many feel that our community is at a breaking point in terms of the social issues that we face and that social services have not kept pace with the problems. What kinds of strategic investments in the social services would you undertake, and how do you intend to fund them?
Well, the way I look at it is, like, social services, yeah, we do need more. Like, that's without question. Like, we'd actually combat the homelessness, we'd combat the drug use, combat the gangs, make sure that those that most at risk are getting the proper treatment they need. So whether this be by opening up more treatment centers, making, maybe having the outreach program start up again, because if memory serves me correctly, the SOS program recently had to shut down, which I think was an excellent program, but we just didn't have enough of it. I feel that we actually need more of that, and if we were to lobby the province, maybe even perhaps the federal government, correctly, not just as we usually have for our legacy projects, I think that we would actually be able to get that funding that we need. Then that way that those that are most at risk would actually be able to get the services that they need and not just leave them out in the cold like what's unfortunately been happening nowadays. And it's sad to see. It really is. That's
Okay.
all I got.
Thank you, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Martin, number 21. Abandoned homes, derelict properties, vacant commercial space, and polluted industrial land abound in the city. Legacies of deindustrialization, underfunding by the province, and a hollowing out of our downtowns by strip malls, big box stores, and online shopping present unique challenges to the future of our city fabric. What is your plan to revitalize neighborhoods and combat the degradation of the land base?
So I think there's two parts to this question. One is what we're doing with respect to the infrastructure and what we're also doing with respect to the people that are living in those neighborhoods. And I think the more important part is actually thinking about the people. You know, I have an opportunity to visit a few different places around the world. I think about Christchurch, New Zealand, and the earthquakes that they experienced and just the devastation that happened in their community. I also think a little bit about my experiences in Toronto when I was living in the Scarborough area. And the experiences in terms of working with populations that are in poverty and addressing some of the needs of those communities. One thing always rings true to me: nothing about us without us. And I think that it's really important to engage communities in those solutions and making sure that we're actually hearing from their expertise in terms of what they want in the area. I think we've got lots of guidance and support and wisdom that really has to come at a community level. And I think that we really need to hear from community in terms of what their priorities are. I see lots of entrepreneurs, lots of different businesses, lots of different strategies that we could address. And I think it's really important to really engage communities in terms of what they see those neighborhoods being. I really agree with some of the zoning work that's occurred in terms of redeveloping. And I think that those are critical in terms of working towards that area. But I'd really support people-powered solutions to really address what a vision for the future would be. And that includes some of the work with respect to a reimagining of what happens in the Victoriaville area, but also in other areas too. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy.
Oh,
The city owns a diverse array of publicly owned properties for a wide variety of purposes. We own golf courses, commercial office buildings, sports arenas, and parking garages. All of these are capital expenses that the city must maintain, often at taxpayer expense. What should be the set of guiding principles that determine what kinds of buildings and facilities the city should run at taxpayer expense?
okay, well, for me, I don't want to pay taxes for a golf course. I don't want to pay taxes for parking garages. I think that the city should stay out of, city shouldn't be running golf courses or commercial office buildings, sports arenas, or parking garages. I think the city should be better served to own or at least have majority stake in housing for the homeless. we have a lot of slumlords and that don't upkeep their apartments. I mean, I've seen videos of apartments look okay, but then you see the hallways and there's people sleeping in the hallways, there's needles, and this is in Fort William, and I don't know how we can control the slumlords, but at least we can hopefully have pride in our city and hope that our city will upkeep the properties that are designated for the homeless or people that can't afford these luxury apartments that are being built right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, Jason, jumping to the top of the list, question number 1. City Council appoints the majority of members of the Police Services Board, with 2 councillors sitting and 1 community representative appointed by council. This allows council to indirectly shape the future of policing in our community. What strategies would you like to see implemented by the Thunder Bay Police Service to address crime in our community?
Yeah, the hottest question in the city, I think, right now. But I will start with that the new Police Services Board, which will be installed soon, I hope, a new police chief, they must work directly on implementing the community strategic plan that was developed. I had input in my role as president of Rainbow Collective, and many others had meetings with the board on this. I fully support a return to neighborhood policing. I use my time as a youth at St. Ignatius, where Mike teaches, and I remember Constable Kathy Williams, always in the school, creating a relationship between youth and police officer. And it creates a safer neighborhood when you have boots on the ground that are building rapport with neighborhood, with families, with youth that are playing within those areas. And that is one point of where I'm passionate about. The other is Project Impact. And if you don't know what that is, it's where a mental health worker is partnered up with a frontline police officer to triage and diffuse situations of people in crisis. Because police officers are not mental health and crisis workers. They are there to serve and protect. And I truly believe that if we have a stronger Project Impact, which does mean more boots on the ground, but more mental health workers tied with that, then we start addressing the real need and the real crisis that this community is going through with drugs, alcohol, and mental health crisis issues. I guess the last thing I would say, it's very important to understand the role that a city councillor plays as an appointed member to the Police Services Board. They are 2 very distinctly different things. You, as a city councillor, are governed under the Municipal Act, and as a Police Services appointed member, you are governed under the Police Services Act. They do not work interchangeably.
Thank you. All right. Mike, question number 2. Small businesses employ about 2/3 of the Canadian workforce and are a critical part of our neighborhoods and communities. How would you use city resources to support the local small business community?
Okay. I would like to be a leader that reduces red tape and makes changes in policy that make it easier to do business in Thunder Bay. I think an example of one you can see with the pandemic, when restaurants needed to still function and they quickly changed the rules and you could put outdoor patios. I think that was an example of something that was shifted on the fly and it's been beneficial. We didn't have to jump through a bunch of hoops like, okay, this one needs to be done, let's do it. So that was great. I think also if you look down Van Norman, Cumberland and Park, they've now been made angle parking, which has increased parking downtown without having to build parking because it's already there. Okay, so there are creative ways to tackle some of these things. And I think we need to, in terms of customer service, the answer should be yes. We need to, if we'll look into what you're asking and we're not going to create roadblocks for you. So I think that's essential for outcomes for people in our city. I think a lot of people feel like hitting a wall sometimes and they're like, I'm not going to pursue this because they get too many no's. So I think yes should be our answer in terms of dealing with city.
Thank you. All right, moving into the 3rd and final round of questions for the Red River candidates. Brad, question 3. Seniors are a growing segment of our community. Over 40% of residents are over the age of 50, with the fastest growing demographic being the 70-plus crowd. How would you help our city evolve to meet the needs of seniors?
Well, I think we should actually invest in more long-term care homes. I know we've had quite a few of the city-run ones shut down in the past few years, and I feel like that's a need that needs to be addressed rather quickly, because the studies don't lie. We do have a rapidly aging population here, and I feel that lots of the time they're not getting their needs met by city administration, by social services. Like, why don't we have another 55 plus there? You know, why don't we have more out there to help them enjoy their best lives after they gave so much to give us the lives that we have now? Like, it's rather simple, really. And, you know, hold plebiscites on the issues and give people, give them the full picture. Give them that full information that they're missing out on. Make sure that everyone knows what our seniors are going through nowadays. And especially a pandemic now, it's taught us that, you know, we can't afford to be isolated. We need to actually get back out and engage again. And seniors were one of the hardest hit groups in that regard, because they're not like folks like myself, you know, where I can just get on my cell phone, talk to my buddies. Lots of them still using landlines, not to judge, but, you know. And you know what? And you guys have done so much. Like, I see lots of the older generation here in the crowd. You guys have done so much for us. It's time that we give back to you, because you made our city. Can't ask for nothing more than that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. All right, Martin. Homelessness is a major issue for Thunder Bay. With winter approaching and the recent cancellation of Shelter House's SOS program, our homeless population is in an increasingly precarious position. What will you do to address the challenge of homelessness in Thunder Bay?
So I think this is a very timely issue, and I think it's so important. One thing I've been talking about when I'm out in the community is really talking about kind of the cost of homelessness that we don't see. So a lot of studies that have occurred with respect to how much it really costs with respect to providing homelessness services. I talk a lot about someone called $1 Million Murray, who's a guy in Nevada who was receiving $100,000 in city services from being homeless over a 10-year period of time, hence the name $1 Million Murray. I think that we can do a lot better than that. I think that providing supportive housing for folks is really important. I think that we need to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to have 4 walls, a roof, heat, and water. I think it's a human right. I think, you know, it is a really tricky issue because the city doesn't directly provide housing services. There's a coordinated housing table. There's also the DSAB and other places that we need to work with to make sure that we're providing that kind of support. But I do think it's crucial, and I think that we need to really be making sure that we're providing the level of support that is really required. I do also support within Red River specifically the youth housing transitional facility for Indigenous youth. I think that we have to make sure that we're investing in that. There are people coming from outside the community that don't know where to go. I've heard a lot, and I've talked a lot about how we need to create a more welcoming environment for folks. That means including the youth that are coming to the city and so desperately need services. It's not just about DFC and Matawa Youth Center, it's about other places as well. And we need to make sure that we're doing a better job to make sure that we're providing that support for everyone. So I think really addressing those pieces would be crucial. I think the city needs to work in partnership. I also think that there's a bit of a provincial and federal conversation in this too. We have an undercount with respect to our population. We are a hub, and we need to make sure that we are working with both levels of government to really address things in the proper way. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Kathy. Question 5. Indigenous people are central to the future of our city. Indigenous residents are a growing share of our workforce, are dynamic entrepreneurs and cultural leaders, yet Thunder Bay has a reputation for racism and discrimination. How will you help address the issues of systemic racism and discrimination so that Indigenous people feel safe and welcome in Thunder Bay?
This is one of the questions I struggled with most of the day. I'm a firm believer that I don't necessarily believe we have systemic racism. I believe we have taken the responsibility of individual racism and haven't made them accountable. I think when we start talking about systemic racism in an institute, we tend to forget that the actual person who committed the racist act is getting away with it. This will never end the racism issues that we have in this city. We need to make people accountable for racism at the individual level, not in an institute level. I am not going to say that my police force is all racist. I'm not. We have good police, we have hardworking police, and I'm not going to go there and say that they're all racist. But I think as individuals and as a society, we need to remove labels, we need to remove stereotypes. We need to deal with individual racism that causes harm to another individual. And if we deem it and if it's causing harm to the extent that it's a hate crime, then we need to treat it as a hate crime. We need to make individuals responsible for their actions. Thank you.
Jason, question number 6. Zoning has become a hot-button topic as the soaring cost of housing has highlighted the impact city planners have on the availability of affordable homes for city residents. Please describe one aspect of the recent zoning bylaw change that you support and one area of zoning that you feel that needs to be changed.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. And just before I answer that, systemic racism is colonialism, and that is what is in our society today. It is prevalent, and I will speak out against it at every turn that I have. That is my responsibility as a leader. Systemic racism is born through our institutions, and if we do not start addressing it, those answers are the problem with society today. So that's that. Now to the question. I support the recent zoning bylaw. I just said this. They're very similar questions. And I applaud the modernization of the zoning bylaw in Thunder Bay. It's probably one of the most consequential pieces of legislation that this council has passed in a long time. With that, the one aspect is that I support is the backyard homes. And why is it? Because it provides for families and allows for an alternative living arrangement and options that aren't traditional as we see it today, like building a house, getting an apartment. It helps seniors and families in the transition from someone that's leaving their home, like my grandmother, to living with my uncle, to now going to long-term care. You know, instead of having her in the basement at my uncle's house, we could have had her in the backyard in a nice little, you know, a little apartment, a little home, a little, you know, mother-in-law suite, whatever you want to call them. But, you know, still living with her independence. And independence for seniors is massive. Many of you are here tonight. And then what needs to be changed? A better definition of what a home business is. Right now, it's a fairly prescribed bylaw that allows for 2 staff to work out of the home. This does restrict a new small business from expanding and growing, and it would force them to either stay small or move to a brick and mortar, which adds additional cost, overhead, and insurance, and all of that stuff. So that's the 2 components.
Thank you. All right, Mike, last question for the Red River candidates this evening. Question 7. Thunder Bay has an extremely large footprint, which drives up infrastructure costs. We service an area the size of Montreal without the population or tax base to match. How would you approach plans for new subdivisions and the supply of the city's land that is slated for development?
Interesting. Montreal is one of my favorite cities, actually, that I've been to. It has a population of about 2 million people that live on an island. And if you compare that size to Thunder Bay, we are 1/20th of that. Okay, so just to give you an appreciation for that. So people complain about taxes. Well, I think the biggest problem behind that was urban sprawl. We've gone too far. We have not stayed tight. And I think instead of going wide, we need to stay small, get rid of some of the derelict buildings, and I think we need to incentivize by maybe even selling them for a nominal amount, because I think investors might be afraid of doing that, but if you make it so attainable that they can buy it, but make a stipulation it has to be demolished within the next 6 months, and let's do something with this. Because I think you look at some of these areas and you have the pride of the neighborhood as well. When you see some derelict buildings in your neighborhood, you're like, you're not excited to walk around there, and you don't have that pride. I think let's clean up and let's build within instead of spreading further and further and further.
All right, thank you. All right, well, that concludes the section for questions for the Red River Ward candidates. I want to thank everyone for coming out and participating. So we'll take another, yeah. Thank you. We'll take another 5-minute break and then conclude with the current River Ward candidates. Thank you.